My name is Lila, and I used to live a life that everyone else thought was perfect. I had a home, a father who loved me, and a stepmother who, well, seemed kind to everyone else. But behind closed doors, life was far from perfect. From the moment she stepped into our lives, she controlled everything: my school, my friends, my hobbies, even what I ate and wore. And no one noticed. No one believed me. When I was 12, I realized that my room wasn't really mine anymore. My stepmother, Clarissa, had decided that certain colors, posters, even the arrangement of my books were improper. She claimed it was for my own good, that I needed guidance, that I needed structure, but it felt more like living inside a cage with invisible bars. I remember the first time I tried to speak up. I had chosen a bright yellow dress for my school recital, something that made me feel confident. Clarissa took one look at it and frowned. "That dress is inappropriate," she said, her voice calm but firm, the kind that leaves no room for argument. "You'll wear this one instead." She handed me a pale blue dress, stiff and lifeless. "It suits your age, and it's modest. You should always consider how others perceive you." I wanted to argue, to scream, but I didn't. I nodded quietly, my heart sinking, my spirit twisting in silent rebellion. That night, I lay awake thinking about control, about how someone could make decisions for you as if your own thoughts didn't matter. That was Clarissa's first victory, though I didn't know it then. By the time I turned 13, Clarissa's control had grown more insidious. She scrutinized my homework, rewrote my schedules, monitored my friends, and even questioned the way I spoke at the dinner table. My father, a kind and gentle man, tried to intervene occasionally, but he was passive. He didn't see the pattern, or maybe he didn't want to confront it. Either way, I was trapped in a world where every move was dictated, and the small rebellion inside me grew stronger each day. I started to document everything. I kept a secret journal, recording moments of control, manipulation, and subtle cruelty. Every word she said, every restriction she placed, every suggestion that was really a command. Everything went into that journal. I needed a record, not just for myself, but because deep down, I knew this wasn't normal. School offered a tiny escape. My best friend Mia was the only person I could trust completely. She never judged, never lectured, just listened. When I told her about the small ways Clarissa controlled my life, how she dictated what I ate, how I spent my allowance, how I even interacted with classmates, Mia's eyes widened. "She's like a puppeteer," Mia said one day, leaning close in the library. "You're moving, but she's pulling the strings. You have to find a way to cut them." I nodded silently. That idea scared me. I wasn't strong enough to confront Clarissa directly yet. I had to be careful, strategic, and patient. That was when the first sparks of rebellion began. Not loud or dramatic, but subtle and calculated. I started making small choices in secret. I stayed up late reading books she wouldn't approve of. I began sketching in hidden notebooks, drawing worlds where I was free. I even started to hide letters from friends, little notes that Clarissa would have confiscated if she found them. Each small act gave me a taste of control, a reminder that I could still exist outside her influence. Clarissa noticed, of course. She always notices, but she never suspected how much I was aware of her patterns. I learned to smile when she imposed rules, to nod when she lectured, to appear compliant while secretly planning my moves. I had to play the game perfectly, because one misstep could give her the satisfaction of crushing my spirit entirely. By 14, her manipulations extended beyond the house. She began intervening in my school life directly, contacting teachers under the guise of concern, orchestrating group projects to isolate me from certain classmates, and subtly discrediting me among peers. The social isolation stung, but I adapted. I became quiet, observant, and clever, learning the rules of the game I never wanted to play. One evening, after a particularly long day of lectures and restrictions, I found myself in the garden, staring at the mansion behind me. Its large windows gleamed in the setting sun, elegant and imposing. To the outside world, it was a symbol of success and happiness. To me, it was the stage where my life had been meticulously controlled, where my freedom had been slowly stolen. I clenched my fists and whispered, "One day, I will reclaim this life. One day, I will be free." Mia became my partner in planning. We spent hours discussing the patterns, predicting Clarissa's next moves, and identifying cracks in her armor. Each revelation was empowering, but it also reminded me of how much I had been controlled, how much I had been silenced. The balance between patience and action became the central focus of my daily life. Meanwhile, my father remained caught in a delicate balance. He loved me, yes, but he also trusted Clarissa implicitly, believing in the order and discipline she provided. I began to notice moments of doubt in him, tiny hesitations, fleeting expressions of uncertainty, but he never acted on them. I knew I couldn't rely solely on him. The responsibility fell on me. As I navigated these complexities, Clarissa's control became more overt. She imposed curfews, dictated my hobbies, and even rearranged my room to fit her vision of order. I learned to smile through it, to endure the rules while secretly documenting them. My secret journal became a lifeline, a map of control and manipulation. It was during this time that I discovered another layer of her strategy: public perception. Clarissa was a master at charming outsiders, at presenting herself as the perfect stepmother while concealing the chains she wrapped around me. Friends, teachers, neighbors, all were deceived by her polished demeanor. It was infuriating, but it also gave me a plan. If the world couldn't see her control, I would need to reclaim my own power quietly, cleverly, until I could expose her influence in ways she couldn't counter. And so, my life became a series of calculated moves. Each day, I balanced obedience and subtle rebellion, observation and action, patience and planning. The mansion, grand and beautiful, became both my prison and my chessboard. Every corner, every hallway, every elegant room held lessons in control, manipulation, and strategy. I learned not to resist loudly, but to survive cleverly, to reclaim small freedoms while preparing for the day when I could assert my independence fully. By 15, I had mastered the art of subtle defiance. Clarissa still controlled many aspects of my life, but I had begun carving out spaces of autonomy. Hidden notes, secret hobbies, friendships maintained outside her influence, all of it gave me strength. The mansion that once symbolized imprisonment now became a place where I quietly plotted my path toward freedom. The turning point came unexpectedly. One afternoon, I overheard Clarissa speaking to a distant relative on the phone, boasting about her ability to shape me into the perfect, obedient stepdaughter. She laughed softly, unaware that I was within earshot. "She's compliant now," she said. "I can mold her any way I want." The words ignited something inside me, not anger, not fear, but clarity. I understood fully now. This wasn't just control, it was domination, and I would not let it continue. That evening, I confided in Mia, sharing the conversation word for word. "She doesn't know how much I see," I said. "She doesn't realize I'm awake to her game, but I need a plan, a way to regain my life without destroying everything around me." Mia nodded, eyes serious. "We'll figure it out, together, but you have to be smart. Patience is your weapon now." And so, I prepared. I studied her habits, her timing, her psychology. I learned to anticipate her moves and respond subtly, always staying one step ahead. The mansion, once a symbol of oppression, became a map of strategy, a place where I could plan my emancipation carefully, without revealing my intentions too soon. Little did Clarissa know, the girl she thought she controlled was already planning her escape, not just physically, but emotionally, socially, and psychologically. The stage was set, the pieces were moving, and the game had begun. Every day under Clarissa's watchful eyes felt like navigating a minefield. Nothing I did was free from scrutiny. My clothes, my homework, the friends I spoke to, even the way I laughed. At first, I tried to obey, thinking that compliance might lessen the pressure, but it didn't. The more I complied, the more control she exerted. It was a trap that tightened with every passing week. One afternoon, Clarissa intercepted a note from Mia during class. She called me into the living room, holding the paper with a smug smile. "I see you're trying to maintain friendships behind my back," she said. Her tone was calm, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. "You need to understand that boundaries exist for your own good." I nodded slowly, keeping my expression neutral. Inside, my heart pounded. I had expected this eventually, but the sting of exposure was immediate. I realized then that overt rebellion was impossible. Any misstep could give her satisfaction, make my life even more suffocating. That night, I wrote in my journal, each word a strategy, each page a blueprint for subtle resistance. Mia became more than a friend. She was my confidant, my partner in silent rebellion. Together, we devised small, precise ways to reclaim parts of my life. I started hiding small items that Clarissa would take away. A sketchbook here, a novel there, even little notes of encouragement from friends. Each item was a small victory, a reminder that control could be circumvented with creativity and caution. School became another battlefield. Clarissa had managed to isolate me from certain classmates, spreading rumors subtly, casting doubt on my character in ways that adults and teachers would overlook but peers would internalize. I learned to counteract this quietly, performing well academically and socially in ways she could not manipulate. When she tried to arrange group projects to humiliate me, I turned them into opportunities to excel. Every success was a silent defiance, a message that her control was not absolute. By 16, I had honed my understanding of Clarissa's habits and psychology. She had routines, patterns in the way she interacted with the family, the house, and outsiders. I studied these patterns meticulously, noting the moments when she was most distracted, when she least expected resistance, and when her attention could be diverted. The mansion, once a prison, became a map of opportunity. Rooms, corridors, and hidden corners where I could plan, reflect, and store small victories. My father remained largely oblivious. He tried to intervene occasionally, but he was too gentle, too trusting of Clarissa's explanations. Yet I noticed cracks in his certainty, hesitations, small expressions of doubt that he quickly masked. I decided that I could not rely on him entirely. My strategy had to be independent, relying on my own intelligence, patience, and cunning. The first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. Clarissa had installed cameras in the living room under the pretense of security, claiming she wanted to monitor everyone's safety. I discovered them by accident while retrieving a hidden sketchbook. Instead of panicking, I saw an opportunity. I documented the cameras, noted their blind spots, and began to plan my movements to avoid being observed. More importantly, I realized that her overconfidence could be used against her. I started to subtly manipulate situations, making her believe she was in control, while gradually reclaiming my autonomy. I joined clubs she disapproved of, hiding my attendance from her. I participated in activities outside her influence, using carefully timed excuses to maintain appearances. Each small success strengthened my resolve, teaching me that cleverness could triumph over brute control. Mia suggested we create a network of allies. We quietly connected with classmates, teachers, and neighbors who had witnessed Clarissa's subtle manipulations. Together, we gathered anecdotes, observations, and evidence, small pieces that could later reveal the truth about her behavior without endangering anyone prematurely. This network became a source of moral support and validation, a reminder that I was not alone in noticing the invisible chains Clarissa had imposed. Yet Clarissa's control intensified. She began to micromanage my grades, contacting teachers multiple times a week, critiquing my every assignment. She rearranged my schedule, restricted my extracurricular activities, and even monitored my online interactions. The tension in the house was palpable. Every day felt like walking on glass. One evening, I found a folder she had accidentally left on her desk. Inside were letters, schedules, and personal notes, outlining her plans for me, detailing ways to control my behavior, social interactions, and future opportunities. Reading through them, I felt a mix of anger and validation. She had underestimated me. She thought I was unaware, compliant, and malleable. But I had been observing her the entire time. This discovery marked a turning point. I realized that I didn't have to fight openly. I could act strategically. I began implementing subtle psychological maneuvers, presenting evidence of my own successes in ways that she couldn't discredit, diverting her attention with minor distractions, and creating scenarios where she inadvertently revealed her controlling nature to outsiders. By 17, I had established a delicate balance. Clarissa's control was still present, but I had carved out personal spaces, both physically and emotionally, where I could breathe, think, and plan. I kept my journal meticulously, each entry a testament to survival, observation, and strategy. My social life, though still monitored, was carefully nurtured to maintain friendships and alliances that would support me later. The culmination of these efforts came during a school exhibition. Clarissa attempted to dictate every aspect of my presentation, from content to appearance. I pretended compliance while executing my project flawlessly, highlighting my creativity and intelligence in ways she could not suppress. Teachers and classmates noticed, praising my initiative and talent. Clarissa's attempts to control backfired, drawing attention to her interference rather than silencing me. For the first time, I felt a surge of empowerment. The mansion, once a place of psychological imprisonment, had become a stage for my subtle victories. Each success, each clever maneuver, reinforced my confidence and determination. I realized that true autonomy required patience, strategy, and a deep understanding of the manipulator's psychology. Mia remained my confidant throughout, her support unwavering. Together, we celebrated small victories, an unmonitored trip to the library, a private meeting with a teacher, a carefully hidden hobby that nurtured my creativity. These moments, though seemingly minor, were revolutionary in a life dictated by another's will. By 18, the pattern of control had fully crystallized. Clarissa's attempts were more desperate, her psychological grip tightening in some ways, yet loosening unknowingly in others. I had learned to anticipate her moves, exploit her overconfidence, and maintain an appearance of obedience while reclaiming my life in subtle, strategic ways. And then came the moment I had been preparing for, the day when Clarissa overstepped her bounds in front of others, revealing the extent of her manipulations. At a family gathering, she attempted to humiliate me publicly, criticizing my choices, undermining my accomplishments, and asserting dominance in front of relatives. But this time, I was ready. I responded calmly, presenting my achievements and independent decisions with confidence. The subtle evidence I had gathered over months, the hidden letters, teacher observations, and anecdotal proof, surfaced naturally in the conversation. Relatives and guests saw the contrast between her polished facade and the reality of her controlling behavior. The mansion, elegant as ever, became a witness to her unraveling. For the first time, I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. The control she wielded so carefully, silently, and consistently was slipping. She had underestimated the quiet resilience, intelligence, and patience of the girl she thought she owned. The day of revelation began quietly, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. Clarissa, confident as ever, prepared for a weekend gathering of extended family and friends. She polished every surface, arranged flowers meticulously, and rehearsed her speech in front of the mirror, her flawless, controlled facade ready for display. She had no idea that the quiet rebellion she had ignored for years was about to reach its apex. I stood in my room, adjusting the outfit I had carefully chosen the night before. No bright colors to defy her, no obvious symbols of rebellion, only a composed appearance, projecting calmness and intelligence. The difference now was subtle but powerful. I had prepared every word, every action, every subtle revelation that would expose the truth without causing chaos. I was ready to reclaim my life, but not through anger or confrontation, through strategy, patience, and clarity. The gathering began with polite smiles, clinking glasses, and conversations that seemed normal to anyone observing superficially. Clarissa floated from guest to guest, laughing, complimenting, and quietly asserting her control over the household. My father stood nearby, courteous but somewhat detached, unaware of the emotional storm brewing within me. The first sign that the evening would be different came when I greeted the guests, projecting warmth, confidence, and charm. Conversations naturally turned to school, hobbies, and achievements. Each anecdote I shared subtly highlighted independence, creativity, and success, all areas where Clarissa had tried to assert control. At first, she tried to interrupt, inserting herself into conversations to correct or redirect, to assert dominance. But this time, I did not falter. I acknowledged her comments politely, then seamlessly guided the conversation back to my achievements and experiences. Each small act chipped away at her influence, revealing glimpses of the truth to attentive ears. Then came the moment I had orchestrated. I casually mentioned an art project I had completed in secret, one she had forbidden me to pursue. When a cousin expressed admiration, I described the process, subtly revealing that it had been done independently, without her approval or supervision. The room reacted with surprise and admiration, and Clarissa's confident mask began to falter, her smile tightening into a thin line. I continued, weaving subtle observations into the conversation, mentions of books I had read in private, hobbies nurtured quietly, decisions made independently. Each revelation was factual, calm, and undeniable. The people around us began to notice a pattern. Clarissa's tight control had been extensive, manipulative, and unnecessary. Her attempts to appear benevolent were collapsing under the weight of observable reality. At one point, she tried to regain control, directing attention to a minor mishap she claimed I had caused. But I responded with composed evidence, gently correcting the misconception while maintaining a neutral tone. The effect was immediate. Guests who had previously admired her tact and poise began to see the contradictions. Her meticulously crafted image of authority and care was unraveling thread by thread in front of everyone. My father, silent until now, watched the unfolding dynamics with growing realization. He noticed the evidence, the consistency of my independent actions, and the contrast between my calm confidence and Clarissa's increasingly forced demeanor. His eyes softened, a mixture of regret and newfound awareness. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, the dawning recognition of how long Clarissa's control had subtly dictated our lives. Mia, ever supportive, gave me a small, reassuring nod from across the room. Her presence reminded me that the struggle had not been solitary, that allies and strategy mattered as much as courage and patience. The network of quiet support we had built over the years had played its part in this moment of exposure, making it impossible for Clarissa to maintain her dominance. The turning point was subtle but decisive. Clarissa attempted to deliver a speech about family unity and guidance, but the impact of my quiet revelations overshadowed every word. Guests exchanged glances, whispering among themselves, noticing patterns, questioning motives, and slowly dismantling the narrative she had so carefully constructed. Finally, she faltered, a slight tremor in her voice betraying the panic she tried to hide. For the first time, she was vulnerable in public, exposed by the very person she had sought to control. The mansion, elegant and imposing as ever, bore witness to the moment her authority slipped entirely. I approached my father afterward, speaking softly, but with a tone that conveyed clarity and maturity. "Dad," I said, "I've been careful and I've been patient, but I can't live like this any longer. I need space to make my own choices, to grow, and to live freely." He looked at me, his eyes reflecting both guilt and pride. "You're right, Lila," he said, finally acknowledging the extent of the control he had failed to address. "I should have seen it sooner, but I see it now. You deserve your independence." Clarissa remained in the background, visibly shaken but contained by the presence of family and the undeniable exposure of her manipulations. Her power, which had seemed absolute, had dissolved quietly but completely. No outburst, no dramatic confrontation, just the natural consequence of truth and patient strategy. The weeks that followed marked a transformation in our household. Clarissa attempted to maintain her role, but her influence over me had ended. I made choices freely, nurtured friendships, pursued hobbies, and rebuilt my confidence. My father began to support my independence actively, recognizing the lessons learned from years of subtle control and manipulation. I also made peace with the complexities of human behavior. Clarissa was not evil in the cinematic sense. She had flaws, insecurities, and compulsions that led her to exert control. Understanding her psychology helped me avoid bitterness, focus on my growth, and maintain compassion while asserting boundaries. By the time I turned 19, I had fully reclaimed my life. The mansion, once a symbol of oppression, became a testament to resilience, strategy, and patient empowerment. Each room held memories of struggle, observation, and subtle victories, but also of triumph and newfound freedom. Mia and I continued to support one another, celebrating achievements and sharing the wisdom gained from our journey. Friends and family recognized the transformation, witnessing not only the reclamation of autonomy, but also the restoration of healthy relationships. The story I lived was one of patience, intelligence, and quiet rebellion. It was a reminder that control, no matter how subtle or pervasive, could be challenged through observation, strategy, and resilience. Freedom was not won through anger or confrontation alone, but through careful planning, self-awareness, and the courage to reclaim one's life step by step. In the end, I learned that empowerment is not always loud or dramatic. It can be quiet, deliberate, and immensely satisfying. Clarissa remained a part of our lives, but no longer a figure of dominance. The mansion, once a stage for oppression, now witnessed a family gradually realigning around respect, autonomy, and understanding. And I finally understood that true freedom comes not just from external circumstances, but from recognizing your own strength, patience, and capacity for strategic action. I was no longer the girl confined by invisible chains. I was Lila, resilient, empowered, and fully in control of my life.